It's Sports Time with Chris, and on today's episode, I'll be talking about the 49ers draft class from 2025, my thoughts on it, my grade. George Kittle just signed a mega extension with the 49ers, my thoughts on that, and will Robert Saleh be Kyle Shanahan's replacement if Shanahan is fired? All of that and more coming up here on Sports Time with Chris. So going into this episode, we'll be talking about the draft. The draft happened over the weekend, and the 49ers are getting some mixed reviews as far as draft grades go from various different sources, and so I'm going to be giving mine today. And overall, I'm giving the 49ers a B- for this draft class. And for now, I'm going to go through each individual pick, give my thoughts on each one, and I'm going to be completely honest. A lot of these, I don't follow the draft super closely, so I don't know what picks are reaches. I don't know a lot of these players. A lot of my knowledge about them is done research, basically looking at results and grades from outside sources. So I kind of look at that and determine my own grades that way. And then I also determine them based on the needs of the team and what I believe the needs are. Actually, if you average out my individual grades for each player that was drafted, it would be overall a B. However, I'm knocking it down to a B- just because I don't think the 49ers truly addressed their needs. Now, they did make some really good picks, and they did some things I think were really, really strong. So I didn't want to knock it down completely to a C+, just because I think there are at least 3 starters that they drafted. And to me, that's solid, even if the other guys don't work out. There are 4 picks that I don't know if I can get behind, but they could possibly be serviceable backups, which is always good. It's always nice to have depth. So let's get into it. 49ers round 1, pick 11, Mykel Williams, defensive end, Georgia. This one gets an A from me. Mykel Williams is more of a run-stuffing defensive end, setting the edge, and doesn't really produce in the pass game as much as you might expect from a top-level defensive end in an NFL draft. But what I'll say about this and what the 49ers really did is focus on an area on the defense where they really struggled with, which was the run game. And so bringing in this run-stuffing defensive end, I think, is solid. And at worst case, he is a really good edge-setting defensive end in the running game. In the best case scenario is he develops pass rush skills and turns into a guy that can do both. So I think he's going to be a day one starter, a tall, lengthy guy. Played at Georgia. He plays against some tough competition. He played against some tough competition in college, and I always like to see those kinds of guys in the NFL. They always seem to have success. So Mykel Williams gets an A. Round 2. Pick 43, Alfred Collins, defensive tackle, Texas. Very similar, obviously different position than Mykel Williams, but very similar in that he is a run stuffer, and that is what he was best known for at Texas. And that seems to be an area of weakness that the 49ers are addressing, is that running defense, because they really did struggle with that last year. So these 2 picks, awesome, and he's just a monster of a dude. 6'6", 332 pounds. I mean, the 49ers don't normally have defensive tackles that are built this way. So having one like this is super exciting. And again, it's just emphasizing the weakness that really broke this team last year, which was a run D. Solid pick, and this one gets an A. Round 3, pick 75, Nick Martin, linebacker, Oklahoma State. This pick, I am not a fan of. I'm grading it as a C. Nick Martin, he does get some comparisons to Dre Greenlaw, where he is really good at pursuit. He can get through. He can sometimes over pursue and get, fill the hole, but then go right past the running back. So Dre Greenlaw struggled with that a little bit in his early days in San Francisco. The only issue with Nick Martin that I don't like, I really can't get behind spending a 3rd-round draft pick on a guy who missed, I think, 7 or 8 games with a knee injury, a torn MCL. Now, he is fully recovered and was able to participate in the combine, fully healthy without surgery, but just makes me a little nervous. We just heard that Dre Greenlaw tore his quadriceps, and so who knows how long he'll be out for Denver very unfortunate for him. But those types of injuries just seem to, if they nag, they nag for a long time. So not my favorite pick. I would have rather seen this 49ers focus this pick again on the trenches, particularly on the offensive side. I think there is always an opportunity to improve your trenches or add solid depth. And I can't get behind this pick, and it's going to be a C. Again, later in round 3, pick 100, Upton Stout, cornerback, Western Kentucky. This one gets a B-. Corner, and the main reason it gets a B- is because corner was a need going into the season. Obviously, the 49ers are lost Charvarius Ward. I think Demo is going to be Demo. I mean, he is such an underrated cornerback. He should have been a Pro Bowler last year, and he just lived under Charvarius' shadow, even though I think Demo outplayed Charvarius for 2 seasons in a row. He really is the cornerback one for the 49ers. And Upton Stout is just more of a slot cornerback. He is undersized, fast, twitchy, but I do think this was a good spot to draft a corner, and we'll see if he works out. If he is strictly a slot corner, then I guess we'll see. This is why this one is a B- for me. Just, if he comes in, he's not going to come in he's not going to be out there every single play, just in 3 receiver sets or when they decide to run a nickel. So B-. And my third and final A from this draft class, CJ West, round 4, pick 113, defensive tackle, Indiana. Again, another run-stuffing defensive tackle, and I love the 49ers just boosting the trenches. I don't think there's ever a situation where you boost the trenches, focus on that, where I'm going to disagree with that in the draft. He's 6'1", 316, so obviously quite a bit shorter than Alfred, but still good size guy. And he primarily played nose tackle in college. And what I liked hearing about him is he liked playing the one technique because he likes punching centers in the face. So just hearing that, he's a guy that wants to punch you in the face, have that tenacity, have that aggression that I think the 49ers really missed last year, especially on the defensive line. They've had it's so strange to me having just defensive linemen, all of them, including our tackles, be more pass rushing types. So this is another guy who I think could potentially be a day 1 starter. And they got him in the 4th round, which is awesome. And that's why this one gets an A. Okay, round 4, pick 138, Jordan Watkins, wide receiver, Ole Miss. This one's a C. Receiver, yeah, it was kind of a need with Debo leaving. Ayuk will miss a lot of the season. Demarcus Robinson is potentially facing suspension. So, is it a need? Yes, kind of. However, this guy seems like he's more of a special teams guy. And in fact, both the receivers seem like a special teams guy, but we're talking about Jordan Watkins here. They used him as a deep threat guy at Ole Miss, but just based on what I've read about him, it seems like he's more of a backup guy, special teamers, and I don't know, 4th round pick on a special teamer to me just doesn't seem like the 49ers' biggest need. Again, I would have liked to have seen the trenches addressed here, but that didn't happen. See, now this one, it gets a B for me. It's round 5, pick 147, Jordan James, running back at Oregon. I'm an Oregon Ducks fan, and Jordan James was a really solid running back for Oregon, and I want to see him succeed with the 49ers. Now, for whatever reason, they decided to trade Jordan Mason to the Vikings, and I didn't agree with that, and maybe this is their attempt to try to replace him. I don't know if I see that with Jordan James. He could be solid behind CMC, but I don't think he's going to be a workhorse type that I think Jordan Mason could have been. So, solid, but not groundbreaking. The round 5, pick 160, Marquise Siegel. I don't know how to pronounce that. Safety, Kansas State. This one was interesting to me when it first came up because I didn't see safety as a huge need. I know there are some people, obviously Talanoa Hufanga left, and Mustafa is on the team. Some people don't think Jair Brown is that great. I personally think he can be, just needs a little bit of time. So this pick surprised me, but after hearing the news about Mustafa, who apparently re-injured the same knee that he had ACL surgery on last season, this pick makes a little bit more sense. I mean, you need safeties, right? You only have 2 safeties on the field at a time usually. So having a guy that can go in and potentially be solid, I think he is able to cover a little bit more area than a guy like Jair Brown. So I guess we'll see how this turns out. I think he seems like a solid safety, and he's going to get a B+. Okay, round 7, pick 227, Curtis Rourke, quarterback, Indiana. This one gets a D. Just wasn't really a need. He had an ACL injury last year. I don't know. This pick just doesn't make sense to me. I think he's pretty tall. I want to say he's like 6'5" or something like that. Yeah, 6'5", 231. He was the MAC Offensive Player of the Year in 2022, which is 3 years ago, 2 for his college career. I don't know. This one just didn't really feel like a need. So it's not my favorite pick. It's going to get a D. Round 7, pick 249, Connor Colby, guard, Iowa. This one gets a B simply because it was an offensive lineman. And it took until the 7th round for the 49ers to address the offensive line at all. So the fact that they even took one, that itself deserves a B. I don't need to read his draft profile or anything. They took an offensive lineman. That's it. B. And round 7, pick 252, Junior Bergen, wide receiver, Montana. It's pretty simple to me. This one's a D. He was basically picked as a returner, as a return specialist, and he did really good things doing that in Montana, which is a little smaller school that doesn't play a lot of top-level competition usually. So spending a draft pick on a potential returner who may not be very good in the NFL just doesn't, it's a D. I don't think he's going to make the roster as a receiver, and it would be simply using a spot. Now, I do like that Shanahan is wanting to have a designated returner, but I don't think this is the right choice for that. So it's getting a D. So there you have it. All my grades for every single prospect from every drafted player for the 49ers. Like I said, overall, if you took all my grades and averaged it out, it would be a B. However, I'm knocking it down to a B- just because for the following reasons. Number 1, the O-line was not really addressed. It took until the 7th round to finally pick a lineman for the offense, and that to me just isn't going to do it. The 49ers offensive line seems like they're really content with being average. Trent Williams really, really brings everything to the offensive line for the 49ers, and I mean, Pooney was solid as well, but it kind of seems like they're okay with sticking where they are with the offensive line. And after watching the Eagles in the Super Bowl last year, I just thought the trenches were everything the Niners needed to focus on, offensively and defensively. The Eagles, even though they have the best offensive line in football, they are still continually looking to improve. And by drafting guys early on, you can potentially bring in starters, or at least guys that will compete to be starters or be serviceable backups. And the 49ers did not do that. So that was a need that was not really addressed. Dre Greenlaw's replacement is kind of a shaky choice with Nick Martin. He has some similar attributes. He has a really good closing speed. He's able to shoot gaps, sometimes overshoots them, and he had that major injury to his knee, the torn MCL. Just kind of a shaky choice. I guess I do feel a little better knowing that D. Winters is on the team. I think D. Winters is solid. Is he going to be Dre Greenlaw? No. So maybe having him there and having the two of those guys compete, I feel a little better about. But spending a 3rd-round draft pick on him, I just don't love that. And like I said, I think that could have been focused more on offensive line or trenches. And then the receivers that were picked, while I think it is always good to have more depth at wide receiver, especially with like everything I said earlier, Debo gone, Ayuk missing half the season, Demarcus Robinson being suspended, I would have rather seen, again, this pick used on someone in the trenches or really any other position rather than a guy who's going to be primarily a special teamer. And speaking of guys who may not even see the field ever, 7th round quarterback. I don't think quarterback is a need unless they're planning on moving on from Brock Purdy. I doubt it, because you have Purdy we have Purdy, Mac Jones, and then Tanner Mordecai. Now, maybe Tanner Mordecai stinks and they want to bring in some competition for him. Okay, fair, I guess. But still, I think when you get to 3rd quarterback on your depth chart, at that point, you're not going to be winning a lot of games. You're not going to be counting on this guy Purdy was the exception to this, obviously, in 2022, whenever he took over for Jimmy G and Trey Lance. But typically, your 3rd round quarterback, you're pretty much done for. So this pick, again, I think it could have been used to gain depth at any other position, and which seems like a throwaway pick to me. So to recap the reasons why I downgraded my draft grade from a B to a B-. The offensive line was not really addressed until the 7th round. Dre Greenlaw's replacement is a very shaky choice, although they do have D. Winters, and I think he's solid. The wide receivers selected were more of special teamers than depth playing receivers. I would have rather seen those picks used to keep building the trenches. And then the 7th round quarterback really wasn't a need. They have Purdy, Mac Jones, Tanner Mordecai. Just wasn't necessary. Kind of a head scratcher. So let me know what you think. Was this a successful draft class? What do you grade it? Let me know. And some breaking news that I got this morning while I was at the gym. George Kittle signed an extension with the 49ers, which is, in some ways, it's really exciting, but I love George Kittle, and I want him to be a 49er for the rest of his career. However, the thing that kind of gets me about this is it's a 4-year, $76.4 million contract with $40 million guaranteed. And the issue I have with it is, even though I love George and he's kind of the face of the 49ers right now, Brock Purdy should be all hands on deck to get that deal done. Because if you have made the decision that you are going to pay Brock Purdy, you have a max amount that you're willing to go to. The draft has already happened, so you're not going to be trading him. At least it doesn't make sense to, unless you're getting a solid player back and some draft picks for next year, which just doesn't help you this year. This is why you got to get these contracts done soon, or make your decisions soon, as early as you possibly can. Because now, actually, if you get the deal done with Purdy, then you know exactly what you can allocate to free agents, to re-signing your other players. You know that. And Brock's price is only going to keep going up. So it kind of bothers me that this deal was done before Brock's. I don't know why they felt the need to do it right away. Obviously, I'm a proponent. I believe you should get these deals done as soon as possible, these extensions, because prices only go higher. But when you have a quarterback that you're trying to pay, that should be priority number one. So I don't want to see a Fred Warner extension or anything like that until Brock Purdy is done. And maybe they're going to make him play out his 5th year. Who knows? That would, at that point, what's the plan? You let him walk? You franchise tag him? Mac Jones takes over? I don't know. Just doesn't. While I'm excited to have George Kittle for at least 4 more seasons, good for him, good for his family, I just would have rather seen Brock's deal have more emphasis. Okay, final topic for today's episode. Jed York had some interesting tweets during the draft process, and the draft seemed to be very defensive focused, at least for the first half of the draft. And Jed York was tweeting about Robert Saleh, and it was kind of weird. It kind of seemed like Jed York may have been under the influence a little bit, which he's becoming known for a little bit. And as an owner of an NFL team, I think I'd rather be known for winning championships and having a high pedigree than drunk tweets. But, whatever. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe he's just being funny or something. Who knows? But these tweets about Saleh were interesting. There's a lot of speculation that Saleh was brought in to potentially replace Kyle Shanahan in the event that he fails, or if he fails, if they let him go, Robert Saleh would be the replacement. And to me, yes, it does make sense for that to be the case. You want to have, whenever you can, you want to have a succession plan if your head coach fails. But the fact that you even have a succession plan for that, there's only 2 reasons. He's not going to get the job done, or he's going to retire. Those are the two reasons why you should have a true succession plan in place for your head coach. So if they're bringing in Saleh to do that, then they don't have a lot of faith in Shanahan anymore. Maybe they've lost faith in him. I know I personally have, but this is not it's not my team. I'm not calling those shots. So what I'll say is, I don't know if Saleh would be willing to do that. If he was brought in to potentially replace Kyle Shanahan, and he knows that, I don't know if he would. I mean, that could potentially shatter his and Shanahan's relationship for forever, knowing that he was coming in to be Shanahan's, to follow up Shanahan, essentially. That could damage the relationship forever. I don't know if Saleh would want to accept a job, even if it wasn't stated before he was given this job offer. If Jed York fires Shanahan and goes to Saleh, I don't know if he's going to be willing to accept. So even though I would personally like to see it, I don't know if it is actually the case. But I guess we'll see. Saleh does have head coach experience now, and he's in a much better situation here in San Francisco than in New York, that's for sure. But that's besides the point. And with that being said, that's going to wrap up today's episode. My 49ers offseason, episode number 1. I don't know how often I'm going to be dropping these. I didn't really talk about free agency too much yet, but I wanted to go out on here, and it's been a minute since I put out a podcast, and I've been needing to. And the NFL draft is a perfect situation to do that. So thank you for listening. If you're new to this podcast, please like, subscribe. Check me out on YouTube and Spotify. That's where you can find me. And I appreciate every single one of you who listened today. Thanks again. This has been Sports Time with Chris.